We are live.
So welcome everyone to our weekly Create a World conversation. Today is the last Friday of the month, and so it's a day when all of the collaborators come together to share conversation and reflect on what's been happening in the last month. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, I want to tell you a little bit about Create a World. Create a World is a space that has been generated through the field of Tantra Mod, of which all those of us that are whose faces you're seeing are a part, and that field's based on certain life-giving principles. This idea that everything operates on behalf of everything else, everything has a place, everything's a part of everything else, everything is in relationship with everything else. Everything operates on behalf of life and has us exist as whole. And everything is always moving to that next greater whole. And so we really see Create a World as an invitation to be curious, to be in observation about what's happening around us and curious about what that can mean for leading a life-giving existence. And this is also a place of community, because as we grow and develop, and as we move through this time of intense human evolution, we really need each other. We need each other there, not only as support, but also as mirrors for us to process everything that we're going through, and sometimes to help us get out of our own way. And this conversation is the container in which the alchemy of Create a World can happen. And it's where we're going to explore and discover together. And the reason that this is so important, especially at this time in human evolution, is that no one can be you but you. You are unique. You have a unique and essential design. And those of us who Create a World believe that you have a reason for being on this planet at this moment. And so there's also no one who can be us but us. And so we have to come together to create that container, that space in which we can each move with our own evolution. So welcome. And I'll just open it up to my fellow collaborators and see if there's anybody who wants to start our conversation today.
What I was trying to do was look at there's a lot that's happened this month.
Right.
And I was trying to see, my freshest memory is with one of our discussion groups that we had last night about bringing health back to human beings, to the planet, to nature, and how that shifts. That's both an individual responsibility as well as a group responsibility. And we were just trying to figure out how we do that when we fall into some of our old traps. We all have habits that supersede often the best wishes that we have for being differently or doing differently. And I don't think we came up with great wisdom, but I think that's kind of what the speakers were talking about this month. Because Victoria talked with Otto and Susie Collins about what they're bringing to the world. And that really is about being differently and sustaining that over time. Right, Victoria?
Yeah, and you know what, Electra, it comes to me that they are each being their unique selves, as Janice was talking about. And I loved the conversation with them because they uniquely hold different perspectives on how to be in a relationship with the self and with and in that, the three of us had this lovely experience of being each uniquely attentive in our own ways and watching how the threads came alive as we were curious about those differences. And that feels abundantly important for us as community right now, how to celebrate difference, diversity,
Mhm.
and hold a container of sustaining the threads that emerge from that are part of the way in which we connect, the glue that we are as humans and soul beings connecting. Big fat love.
The book. Well, we have
Good job, Lori. Mine's
excellent
over.
job, Lori.
You know, when you said curiosity, that actually helped, because something that I keep running into in line with what Electra's saying is getting in my own way. My own habits, including my thought patterns, activity patterns, comfort zones, whatever. And I tend to be very harsh about that. And what I mean by harsh is, even after all the work I've done, I still fall into, I should be different. I should be able to just let this go. Whatever. Curiosity, if I had an automatic, if I caught myself in you should be this and just said, nope, got to shift curiosity, that would soften it. I could either go down the rabbit hole of investigating what is this about, you know, where did it come from, all of that. I could go down that rabbit hole forever and not become effective. But the effectiveness for me would be a softening of that tendency to, I don't go into what's wrong with me anywhere near as much, which is a huge blessing. But the curiosity part would soften and redirect the energies of when those patterns come up, like what's going on here? What is something? And I could then, would change my brain, my mind, to allow for a choosing a even slightly different response to whatever it is going on, myself, something else going on. Because I don't find it hard to be curious about other people in the inviting, hospitable, wow, you're cool kind of way. I don't find that hard. And not just, hey man, you're cool, but like valuable aspect of this planet. But I do find that hard with regard to myself, and that came up in our conversation last night too. What is it that has us hold on to habits that don't serve us when the value and quality of our own life, separate from, or not separate, but not talking about anybody else for the moment, but you know, what is that stops, that the value of our own life doesn't call out the automatic better habits. So that's where,
You know, and
To respond.
what
to
that makes
that.
me think of, Deb, is the opportunity to be in the both end. Because
say more about that, please.
so when we're doing this to ourselves, when we're recognizing that we're in this place, we don't want to be in this place, and then we say, oh, then there's this inclination to beat ourselves up, and yet we know that that's not actually going to serve us, and so, you know, and then given all that, the only thing we have in front of us is the present moment. And I'm saying this as much to remind myself of the fact that this is true as to offer it to others. But so in the both end, we can say, yes, I still, all of this programming, from the water that we've been swimming in our whole lives, it does still have pieces of me. It absolutely still has pieces of me. And I don't like that. And I can still choose to make a life-giving choice in the moment. I can still, in the moment, I can choose a different way of looking at something. I can choose to say, all right, I don't have any faith and trust in myself right now, and I'm going to do this thing anyway. But giving this idea of giving everything a place, giving all of the different things that we're experiencing a place, and recognizing that even if those things have a place, we still have freedom in any given moment to choose what we would really like to choose.
But we're all nice and calm and, presenting here collaborating in this morning's Create a World. So we're all like in a lovely kind of space. When I'm in a not so lovely kind of space, I'm not present to choice for at least a nanosecond. I do recognize that that's decreasing, being stuck in the no choice feeling. And so that so the giving something a place, everything a place, is still something difficult for me. But and I think Electra said it well once, correct me if I get it wrong, Electra, but that means accepting what you're feeling or experiencing.
Right.
Just accepting and validating your experience.
And to me, and so you accept and you validate. And then what you were saying, Deb, about when you move into if you can move into curiosity, you feel like it would soften it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guess what I am positing is that then from that place of it softening just a little bit, then there becomes just that crack, right? To say, okay, and what else might be there that I could move with?
Yeah.
More life-giving in this moment.
Yeah. What else? It gives a little bit of room, because I'm coming to understand those reaction places that are not good vibes, anger, crankiness, the temptation to be snappy with somebody, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is for you. And I'm calling those insanity right now, because I noticed that I keep going back to those things as if that's going to have something be different. As if being cranky, depressed, anxious, whatever, is going to have it change, whatever it is I'm involved in. And I noticed that it doesn't. I just noticed that a few days ago.
Light bulb,
like a revelation, like, yeah, really. And but not like an intellectual thing, but like a revelation. And I noticed that, and I noticed that, but the curiosity will help me create a little space for what are my other choices, because I really honestly feel like we are growing new neurons, new neural nets from which to function, live, and have something different. So we're actually in a moment of going from insanity to sanity in the whole human spectrum right now, in my view. So,
Lori, had you wanted to say something?
I think Victoria had something before. I can go
Okay.
after her.
Okay, y'all jump in.
Okay. I wanted to respond, Deb, to what you said. I think it's important to acknowledge that I purposefully chose the word curiosity and that you heard that word. I was very intentional, and I've been exploring being more intentional with words. So thank you, first of all. And the reason I chose curiosity is because of my own exploration of what happens when I'm in a curious state. I find that the mind doesn't go to the sabotage thinking patterns.
Hmm.
Just doesn't happen that way. And one of the invitations that I've given myself, and I did this in the big fat love conversation with Susie and Otto, as I'm thinking back about that. In order to observe and be in the conversation, I wanted to be in a curious state when each one of them were talking, as well as myself. So to be curious with others, what were the differences in the way I thought about and related to what each one said. And that also brings me to, I have practiced with people that challenge me in my 30+ year relationship. I practice when I'm in a not so great mood. I was prickly the other day, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm prickly today. I'm so sorry. Let me be curious," is what I was thinking in my mind. Let me be curious how I can be with my partner while I'm prickly, while I feel prickly. And to state it out loud to him, he goes, "Yeah, it's okay though. What do you need?" And so the curiosity of, let me just state it out loud, was like what Janice was saying. It cracked open the possibility. So I try to be curious in those prickly moments with others to state my prickliness. And then it can move me into myself in a way that I'm curious with myself more deeply, more clearly.
Wow.
That's what I've been playing with.
Wow.
That's cool.
That is very cool. That is very
To expand more on that too. I mean, I love this conversation right now. It's wonderful. And ultimately, I believe we are all on some part of the spectrum dealing with this. It's so funny. So I love the curiosity. And with that, how can we take a generative movement towards change, or towards our longing, or towards what we wish to create for ourselves in the world and all of that? So while a lot of the conversation has been in that recognizing languaging and how can I move, I'm bring in the body part of it also, in the sense that the practices that we do, we can create more choice within. So that curiosity, Deb, that you shared, that crack. So what is that practice within that crack that you can do to blossom? It might just be to sit and pause and breathe and just be. And allow that, the choice that you see for yourself moving in, rise up, rather than I need to make a choice. Of course, safety and all of that, you want to make a choice, you want to have that in your body to make a choice to take action. But so many of us were going already in the hustle and bustle of the world.
Right.
So how can we at least just pause for a moment and recognize, add that piece, like Victoria said, recognize,
Yes.
like observe, oh, this is how I was in my habit. Oh, great. Okay. I'm going to pause, and how do I want to shift out of my habit? And that might be across the spectrum also. It might be a call to someone, it might be sitting and breathing,
Right.
it might be doing a movement practice, it might be doing like a big old, get it out of you. So it might be a cry, whatever it is, let it happen. That's where the health and the vitality. I love that this started with Electra, you sharing the health aspect, and Janice. I mean, that is health, right? It doesn't matter what our ailments, our illnesses, or things like that. There's still vibrancy within that.
Mm-hmm.
If we choose to be in that rather than not be in that. So it's like I've had my own life history of navigating that, and I navigate it every day. So I love this conversation.
Yeah, that's really cool too, to have a
go-to practice.
well, I don't want to say it that way because I don't want to make this like rules, but actual ways of being that, because we're talking about shifting paradigms really.
Mhm.
And all of the different ones of this month have been in some way about that. That's what the guests have been engaged in, if I'm remembering everything right. And to have ways to like soften the harshness because of how I'm put together, and to soften, to do access to something new. When I say neural nets, I'm not just talking mental processes or mental, I'm talking the whole system. But so it could be, eat this instead of that, because even though it's one piece of food for today, it ultimately leads to something further down the road. It could be don't buy that or do buy that because of what it generates of health in your world right now. And so that is really helpful, is what I'm trying to say, Lori. That's another helpful aspect of accessing something more. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to be sitting with that for a while.
And for me, I really appreciated the word generative, because I think, when we think about the programming from our perspective, we very much live in this, instant change and big change, right? Like the notion that things are a series of very small steps or very small choices, or that when you think about a spiral, in the middle of the spiral, the movement is very, very small. And yet what it does is it, creates huge, space down the road. So I don't think we're programmed to let ourselves say, I'm just going to make this one small choice in the moment. But to me, that's all we actually have available to us, is small choices in the present moment. And so the more we can let ourselves say, still, again, even with all of the muck that I might be standing waist deep, chest deep, neck deep in mud, I'm still gonna yeah, exactly, or with the snorkel out,
Yeah.
I'm still going to let myself make one tiny little choice, one tiny little life-giving choice in the moment. I mean, and that's, again, I say all this as somebody who is deep in the work of this, not someone who has arrived with it by any stretch of the imagination.
I think that's why we're good at the discussion, is because we're all in the deep of trying to make this work. The word that comes to me when curiosity was mentioned was compassion.
Mm.
Compassion for ourselves or compassion for the other. Because in being curious, I'm not in judgment, right? So curiosity says, it's okay. We're just going to try one different thing today, or see what might be different. But it allows it allows us to be okay, even if we're being the bitch, or cranky or whatever. And that's a key component. When you even, Sandra Fernandez with quantum bioengineering says it's intention, it's attention, and it's compassion. Well, aren't those the elements of curiosity? It really, if we do that, my intention is that I don't be a bitch all the time, or I start trying to do something different. My attention is being that moment where I choose, I'm just going to be curious about this. And I'm going to be kind to myself. That's compassion. We have spent, I think, at least 50 years in each of the people in this group, if not more, being entrained into habits that helped us survive. And those are pretty strong, I think. And for everybody who's listening, you look at the way that, when we look at the way that we act in the world, it's from the habits that helped us survive. Some of those look nice to others, and some of those don't look so nice. Some of those look nice to us, and they don't, and others don't. And if I can be compassionate to myself, saying, it's okay, we're just going to try something different. Let's see if we can do something different. Then it gets away with one another of my bad habits, was judgment. I'm really good at judging myself. I don't like judging others, and I don't like to be judged, but I do very good at judging myself. So that curiosity and compassion, they dance together, creating a more open dance floor to be in, I think.
And I'd love to add to, in the curiosity, there is play. And I'm threading a little bit. I have a generative health practice that I do that is playful and fun. And it was something that was offered to me many years ago by my yoga mentor. And it has everything to do with yoga and nothing to do with yoga in the whole look of it to others. I go into a grocery store to buy my fruits and vegetables. And I just start going in with the curiosity. Which ones want to play with me today? I go up to a group of apples. Okay, I want to take home 2 apples. Okay, which 2 want to come home with me? Which 2 want to nourish me? Which 2 want to be the energy that I need that day? And it may look funny to other people that I'm standing there. I'm in the pause of curiosity, like Lori brought out. And I'm in a listening that is different than going and grabbing a couple of apples and throwing them in a bag. It's a generative practice on behalf of health and on behalf of being in relationship with that nourishes the body in a different way. And I really believe it's all about relationship, and that we're in practices to recover our relationship with ourselves, with others, with the beings that are all animate around us, the apples, the bananas, and if you walk up to a box in the freezer, is it animate to you or not? And then you can say, not today. I want animate beings in my life today. And it becomes a generative practice on behalf of your health and anyone that you're buying food on behalf of. And I'm telling you, it's fun. It is fun to see which apples or which whatevers say, pick me, please. I'm here for you. So I just want to weave that health thing in, because that's one of the ways I incorporate health and wellness in my physical being. So,
And also, I'm really, I'm gonna keep focusing for however long it takes me, Electra, because of what you brought up in last night's class about the value of ourselves and a quality of our own life, not at the expense of anything, but what if that elevates our relationships? And, you know, when I've gone to the store, I've spent time just appreciating how beautiful, let's just pick the apples, the beauty of those apples there. And I have felt, okay, I need 4 apples. So, you know, which one has the most life energy, or the garlic when I'm picking garlic or something. But I'd never done it quite like that. And I think that's going to be fun.
Which makes it an interactive relationship.
Yeah. And it makes it about really valuing the quality of my life. Well, caring about, may sound silly to say caring about the apple's opinion or preference, but it matters. I hear that it matters, and that it's about the quality and value of my health. And in other words, I don't have access to all of it, but clearly something is rising, for me at least, about that aspect of a human's existence. And I'm not sure I'm expressing very well what I'm present to, but what you just said, besides being fun, would amplify that aspect. And that's another piece I'm really onto. I think we're moving out from insanity to sanity, because we're talking about all kinds of different ways to shift from doing the same thing over and over, thinking life's going to be different, that these same habits that weren't exactly working and producing value or quality are going to suddenly produce quality or a new recursion. So that's going to be fun, Victoria. That's going to be fun. Hey, Celery, who wants to come home with me today? That's going to be like fun.
and I might add, the ones that want to come home with me are the ones that are absolutely in balance with my energy system. And it might be that we stood side by side, and the ones that the sweetest apples might be exactly what you need. And I need the apples that are more tart today.
That's right.
And then it's the both and, like Janice was speaking to, that we know everything has a place in the measure of what the systems need or respond to in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That goes back to we each have our unique essential design, right?
Mhm.
So my invitation is to like get to know that really, really well. You know, build that relationship with that and allow it to just naturally ripple out, because that's what will happen when you're full in yourself. Just like trees and their root system, you know, they sustain and maintain the weaker root systems. And that's what we can do. We sustain and maintain our own vibrancy, our own vitality and health. And that just ripples out naturally. And there's nothing that you have to do per se for anything else outside, unless you want to go further with that, you know, and enhance it even more. Then you can do that. But we're all relational. When you grab that apple is a part of you. You are a part of that apple.
Wow.
Right? I mean, and that's in everything, the whole world. So take that, like, pause with that for a moment and allow what rises for you to blossom into its radiance. I mean, that's really what health is to me. That's what health is.
You know, and I was trained as a scientist, so I often tend to think of things in science systems. But, you know, when you think about how the system of the human body functions, or how the system of an ecosystem functions, it only functions the way it's designed to function when each piece of it is doing the piece that is to do. Right. So we have cells in our body that are designed to carry oxygen around. We have cells in our body that are designed to eat up the junk that we no longer need. So, you know, in our body, we're only healthy when each of our little cells is doing the thing that is very, very specifically theirs to do. And again, I think we live in a society where we've sort of been patterned to value certain ways of being more than others. You know, value economically, value emotionally. And I think that opens the door for judgment of, well, you know, this isn't a worthy activity, or if I'm being this right now, it's not worthy. And, you know, but if we're sad, I would argue that we're to be sad in that moment. And we're to move with sadness until sadness is complete. And the same thing with anger and all of the stuff that we experience that we classify as negative, because those things are just as much a part of the human system as the positive things. So if we can stay out of judgment and be more in the curiosity, because it's in the curiosity often that the information that we need from that experience will reveal itself to us. And then we're able to say, oh, okay, I get it. And now I can move down the path.
So it's a relationship we're looking at with our internal knowing system. And it's also a relationship with the outer. And it's refining the both of those so that we can honor and respect the internal system that responds to tell us what's going on within us. But it's also that paying attention to the outer system. In Victoria's example, it was paying attention to an apple and which one really connects with your system. But one of the things that from a conversation last night, it's the relationship humans have with the land, with trees, with nature. That has been an imbalance, because in the past, maybe even in the present, a good part of the world, humans thought they were the cat's meows, you know, top drawer. They were the best. They were the smartest. So if they made up an idea that, well, it's obviously going to work, and that's how I want it. Now, these are probably humans with power over whatever element we're talking about. But one of the points of Einstein's, and it was an Eisenstein discussion group, is that we've got to rethink that relationship and redo those relationships. Because, like, even in, how do you know what is best for the land on your property? How do you know what is best for the plant in your house? How do you know what is best for the water in the river near your house? How do we as a community know what is best? Like all these efforts, I think now to make a river legal, an entity that had rights, I think is in the vein of trying to figure out what it is that water needs to thrive and be its healthiest. So it's very interesting that the micro conversation starts with recognizing and being curious about my own inner conversation. And it has to be extrapolated out to curiosity about the conversation with the larger other. If we're going to create, you know, like this inner conversation wants me to create a healthier, happier person. My outer conversation wants me to have the tree and the earth and the waters be the best that they can be. But I have to figure out, or we have to figure out, how do we listen?
Can I share another story?
Yes.
It's like the apple story. I take my dog for a walk every morning and evening. And I pass one particular house, my neighbors, my buddies, because one of them is planting all the new plant life in around their landscape. And he loves doing this. And so a week or so ago, I was walking around and he was tending to this new tree that he'd put in. And I fell in love with her. I knew she was a she, like I was having this connection with her. And I looked at him and I said, "What's her name?" And he looked at me and he said, that pause, that curious listening. And he said, "Azure," because she had this she looks kind of purpley blue. This is interesting. And I said, "Oh, I love that. But there's another name that goes with. I'm not sure what it is." And he goes, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And out of nowhere, in the curiousness of it, I said, "She wants to be called Lady Azure." His whole being just lit up in joy. And I could watch his feet dancing on the earth. And he had a whole new relationship with her as well. Now, some people in the other culture that I don't exist in very much might think it's kind of crazy. But and what happened was, not only did it deepen his connection with his new tree that he'd planted, I have a connection with her. My dog is sniffing the tree, and we have a different kind of connection with how we talk about it being in relationship to planting our plants. It's just like the apples, being curious and having a listening. How do I relate to? And how do they relate back?
In
That's
a,
great.
in a way that's life-giving, right? So the kind of relationship you're talking about, Victoria, is the kind of relationship that's life-giving. And the sort of the other option for how people might look at that and think, oh, that's a little wackadoo, but that relationship doesn't give us life.
Right.
Right. I mean, to me, I'm always about, if we really want to understand how humans are designed to thrive, we should look at indigenous cultures, because they manage to be in balance and in thriving with the planet. And that is absolutely the kind of thing that we would see in an indigenous culture, is the recognition of the beingness of something in front of us, whether it is a human or a tree or a jaguar or the river. And so again, to me, it's about making the choice for what's life-giving.
And what you're saying just takes me right back to Lori and Deb having the conversation of, these are generative practices that we can do in our lives every day, life-giving practices that seem simple, and yet there has to be, what Electra said, the intention to move from a life-generating, life-giving place in ourselves towards those practices, whatever they are, the whatever version, movement practices, yoga and Tai Chi, and those are designed to, what you were saying, Janice, like incrementally over time, practicing those practices give you more foundation. I absolutely agreed with the incremental in the middle of the spiral movement, so that the other moments you can recognize the life-giving nature of you being with another being, whatever being that is. It's fantastic. I'm like so alive in this conversation, just like Lori was saying.
So then that makes even the prickly moments be information or about, what adjustment, what something is being called for.
What if prickly means that you're missing a piece of information from your internal conversation or the external world around you?
That's
What
I'm
if it's
trying to
not
say.
being a
Thank
bitch?
you.
Yeah. But we think we're just, I'm going
But
to
we're
bite your head off.
missing, we're registering something is
Right.
off, something is missing,
Mhm.
something could be adjusted for the life enhancement of myself and the other, whatever, or the
Yeah.
space between. Wow.
And
Wow.
that's a whole different
Powerful.
way to look at it, because, this feeling doesn't mean I want to, that I'm just really irritated with everybody. It means, there's a piece of information missing. And this is the internal cue that you're missing something. I'm either missing an attention to something within me, or I'm missing an attention with something that's occurring outside of me.
Whether it's
Or
the
both.
energies of playfulness, okay. That's really powerful.
I really like that one.
And my prickliness the other day,
Mhm.
I sat and I said, okay, I can acknowledge it and go take a nap and see if it just moves through my system that way. I've lots of choices. And also I got the information, the register. Oh, I ate something the evening before that I don't normally eat, that is not filled with animate, life-giving nourishment. And I said, oh, that's right. Okay, that's the piece of information I registered. And I just simply moved with that. And I think my system, I was like speaking to my system itself and saying, oh, I get it. I understand why you're prickly. Well, I know what I can do about that. I can give some enhancing nourishment. I could take a nap that might help. And I can also acknowledge out loud to my relationship partner, I'm prickly. He doesn't need to know that I've registered why unless I choose. I just move with it. So there's I love what you said, Electra, about it just registers information. And are you listening and registering whatever that information ends up being for you?
Mhm.
And that's what Lori was saying about get to know the systems. I do know after how many decades of working this system, I get it a lot faster than I used to.
Good.
So,
And
And
yeah.
I think it's important to recognize that because these things are designed to provide us information, they just get more and more assertive until they feel like their message has been gotten across. Just like pain in the body, right? Like if I ignore the pain and I keep doing the thing that caused the pain, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse till I'm forced to stop. And I think emotions are the same thing. They want our attention. And once they've gotten our attention, then they can be like, okay, mission accomplished. And I'm moving on. But when we are in that resistance and that refusal, which again, I feel like we've been so programmed in our society to think that certain emotions are acceptable, certain emotions are unacceptable. If I'm experiencing this quote unquote bad emotion, it means there's something wrong with me that I need to fix. All that's hogwash. If we just treat what's happening as information, then it doesn't have to take us down in the ways that it does when we ascribe all these qualities to it that don't really have a place in a system of unity.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's where the community comes in, right? It might be a little more challenging handling all of this on your own, navigating it on your own. You might get stuck in the pit a little bit longer because you really have to crawl out, or you have a community that lives by these principles of allowing things to flow, being in balance, being thriving, everything's, related to everything else, working on behalf of the whole and all of it. It's such a different way of being in these experiences that we all have experienced at least once in our life, probably. And the potentiality of the collective community thriving is very much, like you guys said, based on each of us showing up fully. And that's our work to do. Nobody can do that for ourselves. So when we do that, it not only creates that, like, that yumminess within us, but we have more strength, stamina, capacity to bring that out into community. And when you're standing in that, it is an invitation for the next person. And when there's the masses that are in that, it really helps to shift things more from that longing toward life enhancing way, rather than, okay, we have to demolish and like cut this out. It can no longer be a part of, which it is a part of, it is that both and, but you don't have to focus there. You can focus on the change this way rather than that way. And I'm not an advocate. I'm not walking the streets. I do this mostly all this work within myself. But oh my God, like, I envision what is possible when we all stand together. Anything's possible. It's like, it blows my mind.
Mhm.
It's a little scary, but it blows my mind.
But you said, I'm not out walking the streets. Meaning out in what I heard was out in certain areas.
Well, I'm not an advocate. Like, I'm not busting down the doors, and I'm not the advocate on the street. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
I have that, like, I don't know if I have the capacity for that. I definitely am a support system for that, but I'm not on the front lines. That's what I meant by that.
The way I heard front lines and everything you just said was going out into the areas where things are rough.
Oh, I'll go anywhere.
That's what
I'll
I
go
heard.
anywhere.
Bringing and I was thinking of it's one of the places is Greece, where they had to evacuate everybody because of the wildfires. We've certainly, it hasn't been that long since the earthquakes in Turkey, places where at the inner cities where there's so much difficulty from so many directions. Lots of different areas of life. And I'm thinking, from listening to what's just been said, that the more we engage from what people have been saying today, the more we actually have resources to extend compassion and through whatever our medium is, meditation, prayer, whatever, to Greece, to Turkey, to people. Whereas I'm not going to go personally right now to a lot of different places, but I was hearing it differently. I'm not talking about, I wasn't thinking from the
Hospitalizing.
Yeah, being on this kind of conversation is the way to presence what we're talking about for my system and let people hear it and whatnot. And but I was hearing ways to keep emanating out in the world, intention, attention, compassion, and emanating each little recursion of accumulated health out into the world is what I heard when you were talking, Lori.
Yeah, like when I show up as big fat love, it, like, that's how I greet you. I had a wonderful conversation. I was getting my tire plugged because I ran over this screw the other day, and I was sitting in the shop, and there was a Black man, probably my age, a little younger, but my age, I think, a white male, older, and myself, middle-aged female, white female. And I'm listening to their conversation, and it was pretty deep. It was like a creative world conversation. And it was happening right next to me. And I'm listening and I'm listening, and I'm like, wow, this is interesting how the habituated patterns of the Western world were showing up, and how beneath it there was wisdom and compassion and a different way of being. So it was like a conversation of the both and it was spontaneous because I will probably never see these people again. And I showed up as Big Fat Love. Like, I had no other agenda other than to wait, to be in the pause, right? And being in that pause allowed me to be in a more relaxed, inviting space, I guess. I don't know, those aren't good words, but the broader, deeper, wider way of being with myself, I was able to be that in conversation. So I, practice, just like the checkout lady when you're going to the store.
Right.
I mean, the guy or girl walking down the street, anybody. It's like, how can you just show up authentically and be like, my life is greeting your life, and have an awesome day? That's free.
Yeah.
There was one thing
That's my contribution.
Brilliant.
one thing I definitely experienced as a teacher. It was that you just never knew which seed you planted was going to be the one that actually blossomed. And we, those little tiny ripples that we create, ripple and ripple and ripple, and we have no idea how many ripples come after the one that we created. And so, so just to be in and embrace that. So we're just shy of the top of the hour. Last thoughts as we wrap up?
I just want to say we all can do that, right? We all have the potential and the possibility to be in that space. It's your choice. Do you want to join us or not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there is that power in the individual that sometimes we discount about ourselves. But in the moment, in relating to other people, if we're being the most curious about ourselves, the most being ourselves, that is a mirror for them. And, good old mirror neurons go, oh, then this is an okay moment for me to do that too. And you're right. You don't know how the ripple goes. You never know the impact of, this morning I met a gal who had a Dalmatian who really wanted to run. And we just had a fun interchange with it about, her with her Dalmatian and me with my old pug dog. So it's in the moment, being kind to ourselves, being kind to others, and being the best of being us. Not the old historic patterns, but the best of being us where we're moving. Anything else?
I would like to say that the five of us did that with each other this hour.
Oh,
Yes.
Every conversation is an example of being fully present.
Yes.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you very much to the audience for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Continue it with your friends. Send us comments on YouTube if you'd like, and we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Same time, same station.
Bye.
Bye.